Nova. I do believe we are going into the next matchup now, which is going to be Flurry versus che0nsu. We can just go straight into it, no messing about. Flurry on the mage is going to be here. And what do you make of this list? Because che0nsu is one of the Druid players, yeah. So we're going to have to see how Druid's going to continue to get on this weekend.
Well, Flurry has some of the anti-aggro techs we've been talking about in mage. We have 2 Vexcros in here. There's only 1 Sea Giant, and there are no Rabble Bouncers. But the Vexcros, I think, will play a big part in this matchup. There are 2 Frost Novas as well, which can help against Druid, of course, when they have their board full and Unova. Sure, it locks them out for a turn. And the mind control tech could be useful too, especially against stuff like Whispering Woods, or even just having 4 minions on board. Sometimes just tempoing out the MC tech and buy the mage enough time. Yeah,
it really can, and it's kind of interesting, right? This list, I think, even though there's the delay and some removal, playing aggressive again, I think like Mage is a deck where you have to play tempo and go aggressive, because your stuff is often bigger than your opponents, right? So they should be more fearful of you in terms of the tempo and aggro game. And I think although Frost Nova are obviously fantastic tools, as well as the other freezes against a token-based deck, you still have to win the game. Stopping them killing you for a turn's cool, but you need to kill them at some point or you'll lose eventually anyway. But let's check out that Druid list of che0nsu's and see what he's bringing to the table this week of Grandmasters. Take us through it, Language Hacker.
Right, not that many 1-drops, just 2 Echo Bearers from che0nsu, but otherwise pretty decent curb. A couple of 2-mana plays. We have some Cable Rats in here too. Keeper Steladris, a notable addition that can get you a lot of gas with some of the other cards in the deck. But yeah, the Token Druid's looking to just get stuff on board fast, stick an early board, kind of buff it up with cards like Power of the Wild, Blessing of the Ancients, and then kind of Savage Roar as a finisher, also Soul of the Forest to make your board more durable. But in his main list, he's also running 2 Forest Aids, and we've, I believe, seen him last week switch out to different lists, his secondary or tertiary, when he's been facing mages. So the Forest Aid might be in there as like sort of hedge against warriors to have some extra gas.
Yeah, and then even if the mage takes the route to actually just try and remove stuff, the Forest Aids is still a good refill tool. We have seen it played this weekend, and it does pile on an extra layers upon layers of pressure. You see the 2 players getting ready now. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting matchup. I think the mage should struggle, but I do believe it's a little bit more doable, because Druid's only real answer if you get early big guys on the board is to say Savage Roar and trade. And if they Savage Roar and trade, yes, you lose your minions, but they also lose theirs most of the time, which means you get more time to maybe get more bigger boards on, whereas they have to spend time refilling the board themselves.
And using Savage Roar, that means they're also down some burst damage, which can buy you a lot of time. Like a couple turns in Mage can make a huge difference. We've seen people kind of wait an extra couple of turns just to get some extra value, squeeze out an extra Cyclone, or just make Sea Giant cheaper or Rabble Bouncer cheaper, for example.
There's definitely, as we sound like we're going into the game, there's definitely one key card that can prove a big problem for Mage, and it's Archmage Vargoth. If he's just played on curve, there just aren't a lot of cards that kill it, and then it snowballs so heavily out of control. So Flurry will have to just be a little bit at least aware of that. But so far, let's have a look at the opening hands. Flurry has the full spell PogChamp opening, whereas che0nsu has a bit more of a minion-based curve opening. So I think both players not too much to complain about as far as I'm concerned.
che0nsu kept Keeper Steladris and Power of the Wild, something I really like from him. Keeper Steladris is, again, can be answered with 2 Ray of Frost and a ping, but that's 4 mana we're looking at, and it's unlikely that you just throw that out there without anything else. So
it's a lot, isn't it?
So keeping the Steladris, I also like keeping the Power of the Wild as follow-up. He did find a landscaping to kind of round out turn 3 if he otherwise he could have just gone Power of the Wild, but I do like keeping those 2 cards together. Flurry just playing Magic Trick on 1, thinking if he wants to. Yeah, Shooting Star seemed like the option there. Research Project, not super useful. I mean, it can help you draw cards, but you don't necessarily want to be given the Druid more gas.
Yeah, Acorn Bearer, not bad. You don't normally want to see a 1-drop drawn on turn 2, but also one of the key strengths of Acorn Bearer is that when it dies, it puts 2 1-mana 1/1s in your hand. So it gives you more stuff to do, more refill, and more options. So even if it gets played turn 3 or even turn 4, it means that che0nsu can just keep going.
I like this a lot from Flurry, recognizing that Keeper Steladris is a bit of an issue. With conjunction, the Shooting Star with what he had in his hand, or the Rare Frost, means that he can Elemental Evocation up the Cyclone and just refill his hand. Also putting him on the board, allowing him to contest what che0nsu can do next.
Okay. Frostbolt, Cone of Cold, Frost Nova, Blizzard.
Those can help quite a bit,
the summoning
Unexpected results.
thing. Yeah, there we go.
I got you, Raven.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, unexpected results. So even the unexpected results, which is due to be buffed soon, is still decent because, like you just said about the Mana Cyclone, it puts stuff on the board, which 2-drops often contest Druid tokens, right? You know, on average, I think.
Definitely. I mean, the fact that it's turn 4 and Flurry's at 30 health means that Flurry's in a good spot. The later the game goes on, generally the mage has a better time because it just has more time to use its tools effectively, which is why people are bringing Druid to try and shut mage out before they can do that.
The biggest problem I found in this matchup, from at least my experience, is that if you see this board, right, there's often nothing Flurry can do outside of randomly generated spells.
Yep.
There aren't really core cards in the deck
Woods,
that do anything, right?
Yep.
And then you just die.
Yeah,
like,
Whispering Woods
it's
is
literally what happens.
Sometimes you can throw in a Rabble Bouncer, but Flurry's not running Rabble Bouncers in his main list.
And I'm not in the one I'm running as well, so that makes sense. So, and this is the problem, right? There aren't at the moment. Yes, Cone of Cold, fantastic, but I'm talking in the actual deck. There aren't cards that really deal with Whispering Woods, and when that happens, suddenly, well, a buff comes down. You might not just be dead, but a buff happens. Well, now there are even less cards that deal with it. Arcane Missiles doesn't help. So then it's just, and then you just die.
It snowballs.
You just get killed by a Savage Roar out of nowhere, and there's often nothing you can do about it. It is very, very harsh.
che0nsu opting to go Mark of the Loa here with Acorn Bearer instead of Junway Guardians. Putting some more aggressively standard minions on board.
Yeah, I think this is okay because this means if the board gets wiped, he has Dreamweave Guardians, 2 Squirrels, and Power of the Wild next turn that fully fits in the curve. Whereas if he went the other way, his curve just wouldn't be as good to go as wide. And also, it's the trade-off, right, of power now versus refill later.
I like this from Flurry. So Flurry's going Khadgar, Mirror Image, and Sea Giant this turn. Sea Giant will be free, exactly 0 mana, no more, no less. And with the Frostbolt generator from the Mana Cycle, we can clean up one of those Raptors, making it difficult for che0nsu to punch through the Mirror Images. Now, che0nsu does have both Power of the Wild and Swipe, ways that he can use to punch through this wall of taunts. We'll see what he opts for. Looks like he's going to be going for a Cable Rad buff sort of turn.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the Cable Rat's going down, I don't imagine we're going to see...
Yeah.
Oh, deal 2.
That
not too shabby.
I
think you do this, right?
Right, but I kind of want to kill off the Khadgar.
I mean, you could just...
So he knows that 3 cards in Flurry's hand are just randomly generated cards. So the chance of Conjurer's Calling being in hand isn't super likely, but it is possible. Although I guess if Conjurer's Calling does come down this turn, you just have a lot of damage.
You just kill them.
True. Not always. I mean, 2 things will die because of the giant value trading in, and then after the Conjurer's Calling, the Khadgar can clean something else up. And I would have liked this play a bit more from che0nsu if he had some sort of Savage Roar, like a finisher, but he didn't quite have that in hand.
He had, what, 7
yeah.
from hand?
I'm not saying dump off the board, but I think I would have just liked lacking the Khadgar. Looks fine from this position. Brings up the Apprentice and the Khadgar.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? So, yes, the board's frozen. Obviously, che0nsu can't kill it.
Yep.
Yes, the board's going to be frozen again, but a lot of these freezes are from the generated spells, right? And the problem there is, imagine if he was imagine if this Nova, which was generated, didn't exist. What is he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, he can't do anything, but he did get the freezes and managed to get that giant, especially for 0 mana, get that giant to hit face because che0nsu could not clear off the Sea Giant. So, you know, Flurry gets the win there, and again, bear in mind, Flurry is unbeaten in Grandmasters so far. This is his 4th match. If he goes unbeaten, you know, if unbeaten is in series at least. If he does this, he's going to be 4-0 in the first 2 weeks of Grandmasters, which will be huge. But for me, like, Druid, like, che0nsu should have won out if Mana Cyclone wasn't a card, right? Because I know that's a very stupid thing to say, but it's the fact that Mage needs help outside of its deck often to win this matchup is my point.
Definitely. I mean, and we're seeing the power of Mage. I mean, like you said, cards that aren't even in the deck are being used to get wins against unfavorables. I think Druid is definitely an unfavorable. I know we've been talking about some of the other decks. Are they really unfavorables or favorables and how that kind of works? But I think Druid is aggressive enough that it can just kill.
Like I said, you saw the inability to do anything outside of those discovered spells. Even if those were other cards from his deck, the same thing pretty much happens, right? He will just get swamped by the
Yeah.
wide board. But yeah, that only game number 1 there. che0nsu still, I feel, has a decent chance in this matchup versus Flurry, but Flurry is just 1 game away from going 4-0 in Grandmasters so far. Unbeaten would be quite the feat. So find out in just a few minutes if that's going to happen. We'll be right back.
Well met, friend. Ooh. Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
We're back with Flurry versus che0nsu. Flurry taking a win versus the Token Druid there off the back of some very well-timed and generated freeze effects just to buy enough time for that Sea Giant to get the job done. Let's take a look at the list these guys have changed to, as is their right in Specialist format. They do build 2 secondary versions of their deck with up to 5 cards different. You can see the 5 cards swapped in and swapped out for their secondary and tertiary deck here. But what do you make of this one?
Right. So Flurry has switched his secondary list. He's taken out 2 Vexcrows, the Harrison and Ziliax, to add a Polymorph, a Sandbinder, a Blizzard, and a Sea Giant. Now, I don't think this secondary deck was initially designed for exactly Token Druid, but I think there's some cards in here that Flurry agrees are better against Token Druid than what he had in his main deck. Harrison and Ziliax, not super useful against Token Druid, kind of slow. The Ziliax can help a little bit in some situations, but I think Flurry's opting for an extra Sea Giant, an extra Blizzard, and maybe even the Sandbinder just for a bit of consistency to try and find a Cyclone.
Yeah, I think that's good. And also just more cards to play earlier in the game as well. That's going to help draw into more cards. So I do like the Sandbinder. The Polymorphs there, I think it's just a sideways extra card that, as you said, wasn't particularly built specifically for Druid.
Right.
But still, you never know. If there's a big minion built up by some buffs, and Vargoth specifically, then, you know, it can get some value. But overall, I do like the swap. I think Flurry was in a decent position with his deck overall, or as decent as you can be in this matchup, but the addition of an extra Siege Giant is obviously pretty good. But let's check out che0nsu, as I believe he has also moved to that secondary deck, and it's the one we've been seeing that the Druid players have been playing versus Mage throughout the weekend. It's the minus mark of the lower, -2 Forward Sage, so only changing 3 cards in this swap, but gaining those 2 Fairy Dragons and the +1 Henchclan Hogsteed to make it 2 total in the deck. And we've seen, I think, every game that we've seen of this secondary list, Fairy Dragon's got some work done, right? Because Mage can't interact with it outside of minions trading, or AoE that may occur much later on in the game, which just doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of nuts.
Fairy Dragons are very powerful, and like we talked about before, the Forest State comes down a little bit too slowly, but the rest of the 27 cards that che0nsu kept the same shows that this is what it was brought for, kind of to target Mage. But he, I think, teched his main list a little bit against some other stuff he might have expected his opponents to bring, which is why we see his main list not have the exact 30 cards he wants against Mage.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's going to do pretty well. Again, just a small shout out to that tertiary deck, because I do want to see it played one day, just because of the cards that are included, like good old Force of Nature.
You can play that on ladder.
You can play that on ladder.
That should be fun. Maybe we'll take it for a spin later.
Maybe that should have been one of the Druid buffs. What do you think? Just bring back Force of Nature Savage Roll. I know a lot of players who will be very happy with that language dragon.
Yeah, it would be fun. It would shake up the meta a little bit. We'll see if
a little bit.
Would be, I mean, it depends how you build the deck, because I think having Force of Nature Savage Roar on this meta might be a bit different than it was back then.
Sure.
I might have to build the deck a little bit differently, but could be cool.
Yeah, it could be very, very scary, at least in my opinion. But anyway, those are the lists that the players are going to be playing out here. Of course, it's Druid versus Mage. The players are keeping the same class and most of the same deck as is the Specialist format. But just want to reiterate, just in case you're joining us just now, but Flurry is unbeaten in the league so far, and if he beats che0nsu, he's got basically flawless victory in his way all the way through the league at this point, which will be incredibly impressive, especially when you hear from Tyler, when, for example, he was saying, oh, I thought Patch was going to bring this, so I brought this.
Right.
But she didn't, and he could have lost because of it. You know, these are the difficult calls you have to make as a player week in, week out, but Flurry's getting the job done no matter what.
che0nsu had exactly Keeper Slouder's and Power of the Wild going first in the same positions in his hand as well, so that was kind of funny. Flurry tossing back Ray of Frost.
All I see is Archmage Vargoth there.
Wow. And this is one of the super powerful Druid openers you can have. Even with the Acorn Bear, just Staladris into something, into Vargoth, that becomes very scary very quickly.
In case you don't know, Archmage Vargoth, not the most commonly played minion, even though it's got a very powerful effect.
Yeah.
At the end of every turn it's on the board, it will recast a spell you have cast that turn.
At random.
At random, yeah. But the benefit for Token Druid and why it plays it is almost all your spells are actually buffs.
Yep.
So the idea is you play Archmage, then you play some buffs or summon some minions, and then guess what? Archmage at the end of the turn buffs again or summon some more minions.
Yep.
And as you can imagine, it really snowballs out of control.
So I like che0nsu just playing Landscaping on Curve here, even though he can use Power of the Wild to get the value from Keeper Staladris and get another copy of both choose ones. I think just playing on Curve here is much better.
I also think it's most likely when you play like this, it's most likely that Flurry will do something like this and use removal because the board is quite wide.
Yeah.
And then it makes Archmage Vargoth just that much safer in someone's one. So imagine if Vargoth gets played next turn.
This is exactly the same game.
It doesn't die, and then he just Power of the Wild.
Yeah, and then it's incredibly difficult to deal with.
Not going to go for it now, though. He wants to clear off this board. Interesting.
I am actually kind of interested here, because the Power of the Wild doesn't help him deal with anything. I think he just wants to completely cash in on this stuff. With Vargoth, if you play the choose one version of Power of the Wild, it's random which of the 2 choose ones you get from it. So maybe he wants to cash in on the Staladris value now, and then save the normal buff cards for the Vargoth later.
Right. And it means that, as you said, he can then actually choose between
which of the two?
3/2 or the buff, because you play spells specifically that do that instead of a choose one.
Do you know what the 2 choose ones are called? Without looking at the screen?
Leader of the Pack is one.
Yeah, and the other one's Summon a Panther.
Oh, okay. That's the best name card in the game.
Yeah.
Summon a Panther.
Straightforward.
What does it do? Summons a Panther. It's done.
Powerful. Alright. Flurry did get a Scorch from the Mana Cycle last turn. Drew an Apprentice. He kind of needs to plan out his turn. What does he want to do?
I think Scorch always is signed up for this one.
Yeah, I think taking it a little bit slow here. You're removing a lot this turn with the Scorch and the Ping, so you can... You do leave a tree on the board, but I don't think you need to just throw the Apprentice down for no reason, so I do like taking it slow.
That's the weird thing, isn't it, with Stelandris, is you're removing a lot, but you know che0nsu has the power to generate similar again, because if Stelandris was on the board, he has all those buff spells back.
He knows what 4 of those cards are.
Yeah.
che0nsu drawing Acorn Bear here, so if he played Whispering Woods first, there would be no space on the board to play the Acorn Bear. So he thought about it a little more and then decided he wants the Acorn Bear on board instead of the extra Wisp. It's about the same. If it gets pinged off, you just get two squirrels in your hand.
And if it doesn't get pinged off, it's +1 damage, which is always fantastic. Look at this, though. That, I Spy, an Arcane Explosion. Yeah.
che0nsu's... he's taking it very well, though.
I think after last game.
Yeah, I mean...
Of Cone of Cold into extra Frost Novas. You become numb to this kind of abuse.
Instead of going for the buff series, going for the Panther, just go a bit wider.
Yeah.
So the
because
Vargoth,
yeah, he's going to summon another one now.
It's guaranteed to summon another Panther.
Now it's the big question. Yes, there's freeze, but I don't think che0nsu... Like, yes, if Blizzard comes down and kills the 2/3/2s, that sucks, puts Archmage Vargoth to 4. But che0nsu has a ton of spell. He could just
you can just do it again.
Mark of the Lower would be really good. I think, you know, if he makes the 2/3/2s, then oh no, it's either more 3/2s or
just a buff.
massive buff on a, you know, either Vargoth or one of the other minions.
Flurry has a couple options here at 6 mana. No Conjurer's Calling in sight, so the Giant isn't really... It can be played, but it's not a defensive option just yet. Vaporize can be developed, but it's not the best use of mana because it just deals with one thing on the board.
What about double 3-drop?
Yeah, I was looking at double 3-drop. Oh, you mean the Luna with the Buffoon?
Yeah.
What's our hand looking like? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Played 2 cards, then a 7 back up line. You could, yeah. It helps fight for the board a little bit. The problem is, you know that che0nsu has... Flurry knows that che0nsu has 2 buff cards in his hand. So playing out the 2 3-drops means that your board is just going to get value traded.
Yeah, definitely true, but I feel like the value trades you can take, and then che0nsu should go wider on the board, and then Blizzard to pull it out. Because this Blizzard, I think, was relatively low value, if I'm completely honest.
Fair. What happens then if che0nsu has some way to deal with them that doesn't allow the Blizzard to clear, though? What if he just goes tall?
Then you just cry a little bit. But what if he has that anyway? This is my point with Vargoth. True. Like, look at this board from nowhere. The board's in the same spot, and now he doesn't have Blizzard. I am not saying the double 3-drop would have saved the day miraculously, but I think if you try and draw more out of your opponent at 25 health with only 3 minions on board for che0nsu, it's as safe as it's going to get.
I was going to say,
che0nsu is going to get very angry very quickly.
Yeah, Flurry needed to find a freeze here to not necessarily stop lethal, but actually it might even 8, 14, plus 5, 19. Yeah, that would have been lethal actually without the freeze.
And this is what I mean. The one turn you can't do something about the board, you just die.
Yeah.
Like it's so savage.
And with
often a roar.
Yeah, with Vargoth on the board, che0nsu can just double buff, right? Sure, his board's frozen, but
why not? Unless he's got a Flame Strike out of nowhere.
Yeah. Could Wrath your power to kill the Luna as well? It does risk the Vargoth casting Wrath again on something, but
I don't even think you need to. Let him have Luna. If they spend mana drawing cards, well, they're spending less mana doing anything else, right?
I don't know. 2 Sea Giants, you end up finding a Nova with it as well. It can get very scary. That's how you lose the game. It's clear from che0nsu's perspective that Flurry doesn't have those crazy power tunes. I feel like a Giant would have been better here with a Nova, right? It lets you develop something.
100%, yeah. I like this.
I do like the buff here.
Because you play the game where all che0nsu is saying to Flurry now is, the second you do not freeze this board, you are dead. Yeah. You just lose. And that's just the way it is. So Flurry, has to keep doing incredible things the longer the game goes on.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can. Like, look at this hand.
So Flurry does not have the tools in his hand to deal with che0nsu's board, so he's going to have to A, draw, or B, use the Cyclone here to try to find something. Could use the Cyclone just by itself to draw cards. There are 2 natural Frost Novas in the deck. So Flurry could try to dig for those. Goes Arcane Intellect first, doesn't want to use the Cyclone just by itself. Ray of Frost can help, but the board's a little big right now.
Yeah, even Polymorph Ray just doesn't... I guess Polymorph
Ray Frost is
Ray
going to have to come out here, right? Ray, Coin. So Coin, then you want to go Elementalification Cyclone in case you find the Frost Nova, and if you don't, you can use Polymorph.
But you, it's just because he already froze the Vargoth, right?
Right.
So I feel like you should have froze something else because Vargoth surely is the poly target.
True. Yeah, I think you could have frozen both the bigger Raptors and then Polymorph. Ooh, interesting. Goes for a counterspell here to try and stop a buff coming out. So che0nsu does have ways to play around this. He has Wrath and the Dreamway Guardians to proc that. Actually, there's no buffs anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it just lethal?
It is also just lethal.
He's just gonna... che0nsu just got chatted. Flurry just baiting the, you know, trying to make him do something weird, but he sees the counter spell, has the spell to do it, and realizes that it is lethal. And even if, as we can see, even if it was Ice Barrier, yes, it's not lethal instantly, but then Flurry has to do more magnificent things to turn after, and it starts getting progressively more silly, basically, and Flurry has to keep doing more and more, effectively just magic tricks, and they have to keep getting better every turn, or the audience is going to be annoyed and leave him, basically. So this is just going to even it up 1-1, and that was much more from what I see of the Druid matchup versus Mage. They just make a board, and at some point the Mage can't deal with it, and then they just die. Can che0nsu do it again and break Flurry's winning streak? We're going to find out after the break. We'll be right back.
Now the cards show me a tinker, so clever, but kind of a stinker. In a storm that's a-raging, sits the last one I'm paging, a truly unusual thinker. All bots are now gonna go boom, but still, you shouldn't assume that I've made this selection on my own direction.
No, indeed, let's be clear. I have brought you all here, and now you're all in. It is time to begin.
Each teammate I'm calling has stories. This tale's about riches and glories. Deep down in the earth, a king dreams of rebirth and refilling his gold inventories. Such a shame to have lost all that treasure. Join up, be a kobold of leisure. The cards now be calling someone new, no more stalling. And we next will be taking her measure.
We're back with Flurry versus che0nsu, and it's going to be, of course, Druid versus Mage for the third time in this series. That makes sense. It's Specialist. But che0nsu I think is going to take this. That's my prediction for this series. Now, Language Hacker is even 1-1, as I mentioned. They're staying on the same decks as game number 2. So basically, che0nsu's more aggro-based deck, and then Flurry's slightly anti-aggro version with the second Sea Giant. Let's see how it goes. But again, I think asking the mage player to keep having to do crazy things over and over again to survive is going to break at some point, right?
I don't know. Maybe Flurry is just going to take the 4-0. I mean,
maybe
he'll be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat, I think. Speaking of which,
yeah, there's a magic trick. And ooh.
Just chain them.
You think?
Yeah, make sure Arcane Giant's cheaper.
You don't think Cinderstorm's good enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Arcane Giant, for people like lull casters. It was a joke, guys. I got it.
What do you mean?
See, Language Hacker waits until the last day we're casting together to start throwing this very dry humor my way.
Oh, I need a reason for you guys to bring me back.
Oh, okay. Oh, was this the suggestion? It's like, yeah, so the casts have been good, but they're trying to just wind Raven up a bit more, and then it's much more likely you'll be brought back.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, good to know.
Keeper Slatters again for the 3rd time on turn 2 for che0nsu. Acorn Bear to start off with.
Pretty solid mulligan skills.
I mean, yeah. It's a one of. Maybe he's playing the Soul Adventure, and he got the always have this minion start in your hand thing.
I actually wouldn't know. I played it once. And
It's okay. Audience knows.
Yeah, okay. Professional PvE Hearthstone gamers.
Oh yeah. Flurry throwing out the Stargazer Luna to contest the Steladris. There's a lot of golden legendaries, man. These are expensive.
Here's the big one, though.
Here is the. Remember that Cinderstorm we were talking about in turn 1?
Yep. The one you wanted. The magic trick instead of? Yep. But yeah, the big, I mean, we saw just last game how good Archmage Vargoth was in terms of just, yes, it does a good job anyways at 2-6, but also it made the game silly, right? It was just overpoweringly good in terms of the extra value it gains. So even if this board is cleaned up and there's some kind of trade going on for this Luna, it's likely that che0nsu can kill this off and just jam this Vargoth.
I want to talk about this real quick. So Flurry was going to bump the Stargazer Luna into the Keeper Steladris first, and then Cinderstorm, just on the off chance that some Cinders hit the Keeper Steladris, but then decided that it was more important that more Wisps get killed to play around something like a Soul of the Forest. So he held back the attack, went Cinderstorm, and if there were any Wisps left over, he wanted to clear them up with Luna. Unfortunately, the Cinderstorm went terribly. 2 hitting che0nsu's face, I believe. Was it 1 or 2? 2 hit the Steladris. I think 1 Wisp was killed.
I think 1 hit face. Right?
Only 1 hit face, then 2 Wisps were killed. So not the worst possible outcome, but it was a little unfortunate for Flurry there.
It could have been better. I think that's the thing. It wasn't a true disaster, but it could have almost won him the game at that point, or at least put great strides towards winning the game. And now just ping past. Flurry's just having to hang on here and decides that 6 damage is enough to take this turn. But honestly, like Archmage Vargoth comes down and
could be scary.
I like it. Just Vargoth Squirrel, I think. I think we will wait till next turn so we can guarantee Vargoth value.
In case there's something crazy that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I always
like
just want to snap play it.
If there had been a Cyclone, maybe you can consider holding on for a bit, but I kind of like the... Oh, maybe he's just setting up for lethal. What if he's thinking, I get enough on board just for Savage Roar Power of the Wild?
Well, you'll Power of the Wild this turn, right?
Right.
Yeah, 1-drop Power of the Wild, go. Wait. Am I going crazy?
A little bit. I am confused as to why the scroll didn't come down.
Is
Perhaps
this
he's playing
Sea Giant play?
Yeah, so Sea Giant would cost 4 mana now, and it can't be Conjurer's Calling.
And it can't. And ping doesn't make a difference.
Right. I still think I would have liked the Squirrel. Because, I mean, sure, I guess it plays around the worst case scenario where Flurry does have exactly Giant Conjurer's Calling and it hits like 2 Mulch Munchers. But even then, I think you just have lethal through it. So I'm not sure. Maybe it makes it a bit more difficult to do something like this where you freeze and play Giant in the same turn, right? This way, a Sea Giant would have cost 4 mana plus Nova. It just isn't enough.
Awkward now with the freeze. The Vargoth does. Maybe this is why. Maybe worst case, you wanted to play Vargoth.
Play something good. Yeah,
he got frozen. Because otherwise, he'd be a full pass this turn. I was going to say the Awkward Pies. He can't even Cable Rat and then play a Lackey because there's no space.
Yeah. Flurry's going to need to find a Sea Giant here to be able to be able to turn this game around. He does have a Frost Nova in hand, so if Sea Giants develop this turn in combination with Conjurer's Calling, he might just be able to push enough damage to win, but it's not in hand, obviously. He would have to find something.
I think he goes for a slow turn this turn, right?
How slow are we talking?
All I want Flurry to try and do is Mountain Giant Conjures next turn.
I like playing the Apprentice. You're likely Novaing this turn as well, and with the Arcane
now
Intellect.
you can draw again.
And the Evocation with the Cyclone, you can just get enough random spells that maybe...
Oh, double Evocation, sign me up.
And with two Apprentices on the board, that means a lot of the spells that come out of the Cyclone can be used as well. Obviously, the 2-mana discount is quite powerful.
Is there any loops that get you lethal? There aren't, are they? I don't think there are like any infinite damage loops.
No.
With this, right? Because you do... hand size is the issue, right? You do run out of spells at some point.
I like this too, even cashing on a Conjurer's Calling just to really juice up the mana cycle and saying, I need an extra Frost Nova.
Okay.
Or a Blizzard or something. The Blizzard might not be as useful, but it can still help. Tome of Intellect. Tome of Intellect.
No!
That's fine, that can be done next turn.
Oh, this is a lot of buffs though.
And it is.
It's just going again.
He's using a Savage Roar here to take out a Grilled.
I like it. Because look at the damage on board. You
Right,
don't need
it's
Savage Roar
just
to win.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
But this is important because it it halves. Yeah, well, okay, maybe not literally halves, but it feels like it halves the potential that you give Flurry to be able to pull something out of the bag.
Downside of playing the Roar there means that Vargoth might cast the Roar instead of, he draws the Blizzard.
Is Flurry just immortal? Is he just going to do it?
He might have. I'm telling you, it looks like he's pulling rabbits out of hats.
The funny thing here is as well is that with the minions he has on board, he can actually start pushing damage. If he can keep chaining freezes, you know, he has a reasonable sum of damage available to him. Like 7 a turn, it's not bad.
So if you Elemental Evocation at the Giant, that's 2 mana plus the Blizzard, you can't quite Conjure Calling the Giant as
You
well.
don't need to though, right?
3, 5, 7.
Oh, you mean to like set up
15,
to like next turn lethal or something?
It's
right. It's still a fantastic turn.
It's one-off lethal if he goes Evocation, Giant, Blizzard, everything goes face, and then it allows him to ping next turn, but che0nsu, if he armors up, will be just outside of range, I believe. Actually, even without armoring up, 7, 14 plus 8, 22. Yeah, with the ping next turn, it will be lethal if che0nsu doesn't armor up. The thing is, you know, Flurry's damage on board is kind of face up. There's 22 with it, 23 with the ping.
Look at Flurry. Sorry, look at che0nsu.
Yeah.
He's just like, come on, let me attack
This
once.
deck's not supposed to do this.
Yeah, stop it. It's honestly like, oh, here's my primary deck, but I also have access to every mage card in existence.
By
Just
the
so
way,
you know.
yeah.
You know that 5-card limit? I throw it out the window with this deck.
Yeah.
And honestly though, people might laugh, oh, created by so on, so on. This is the power of the deck, and just as many times as it works out, it also doesn't. And the trick is how well the players manage the bad situations as well as the good situations.
Right. So now Flurry has 12 damage on board, not enough for lethal, and there are no more freeze effects in hand. I believe there might be a Frost Nova left in the deck. I think he's used 2 this game, but I can't remember if one was created or not.
So what is the
play?
chance? 2-drop with Juggler. Juggle goes face.
That is a possibility. I don't think there's a great way for you to find lethal this turn, so you need to find some way to either stall or make a big enough board of taunts, either with images or multiple grave horrors that soak up enough damage.
You can chip away a lot of this board damage as well.
Yep.
Now that there's no death rattles. Oh, not none, but okay, there's 1. But it means you can get some pretty good trades off.
So if he plays the mirror images, that means he can't Conjurer's Calling twice.
He can trade the minions off.
Right.
Oh, sorry,
No,
mana
I mean,
costs,
like,
right,
yeah,
sorry.
mana costs.
Oh, I was looking at the board size and be like...
I don't like the Scorch on the 3/2. I believe that has a death rattle, or does it not? It's hard to tell behind the lifesteal. It might not. It looks like it doesn't. If it doesn't have the death rattle, then yes, you should just try to clean that up instead of the... Oh, you don't even have to because you can use ping.
Also, I think most importantly, this makes harder break points, right?
Right.
Because you remove the 2/4 attacks, which means the taunt isn't traded into
Agreed.
by just 2 minions. And
Suddenly, che0nsu's board is
Flurry just is not allowed to lose.
He's playing exceptionally. He's playing to a lot of stuff. Every turn, perfect mana utilization, figuring out what needs to be done to keep him in the game.
That's it, right? He's managing to do just enough.
All right.
And if it's just enough, it's enough.
Exactly.
To win. You know, you don't have to do anything too crazy. He's just about getting there. But now, like you said, what does che0nsu actually do at this point?
So Blessing of the Ancients is in hand, and with the healing from the Dryad, you can get a bit. You can get out of range of what Flurry has. I mean, obviously, even on board, Flurry doesn't have lethal setup, but you can heal to buy you some extra turns from che0nsu's. Okay. Forest State can give you some refill. The problem is
dead.
Yeah. So you might have to go Dreamwood Gardens here and then go for the Blessing of the Ancients, meaning that Flurry can't just hit you in the head. He does have to continue to clean up the board. But he goes for the Forest State instead. I guess he already has Landscaping this turn to fill up his
could have gone
mana.
The Predatory Instincts and drawn the mole. Not the mole, the cable rat.
Could have
1/2.
Yeah.
Sick buff.
Powerful. Why don't we run?
Cable rat was a 1/2.
Should main deck
Hard to
that.
be overpowered. What? Insane.
Be pretty good. With the Ray of Frost pickup, Flurry can consider ignoring the board and going face. But he doesn't freeze quite enough for him to feel safe, I'd say. So he's gonna...
Does have Vape as well, which means that, you know, it's almost a freeze because one minion dies.
True.
And most importantly, one minion doesn't hit him.
Right. Oh, I saw a Sea Giant.
Ooh.
I see
Saw
two
two
Sea Giants, yeah.
See double.
Now we're
Literally.
Now Flurry is greatly incentivized to just clean up, make sure he doesn't die to anything.
Right.
He knows that there's a discovered lackey card. There's 2 squirrels and the second half of Blessing of the Ancients. So che0nsu's hand is almost face up. There's just 1 mystery spell. Flurry gonna clean up, make sure he doesn't die to a random Savage Roar, and this will be just about a lethal setup.
Just polymorphs as well, right?
You could probably just Scorch instead. You could also Vaporize Ping Face to get the extra damage in, because right now you have 24. Oh, I mean, the Giant might be going face anyways.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were always sending the Giant face.
He's trying to figure out if there's anything he dies to. The Blessing of the Ancients plus a Roar, perhaps.
Oh, okay. It's going to be ultra safe, but with the joy of drawing
This still
2
sets up
Sea
lethal
Giants,
too, yeah.
it's just...
This is 25.
che0nsu has to do a lot here.
Fortunately, the Mark of the Loa does give che0nsu a way to survive by taunting up one of his minions. Otherwise, he would have just been dead this turn. Nothing he could have done would have prevented lethal.
Everything but the Forest Sage here.
Yeah. I think that's got to be the play. Blessing of the Ancients, and then Mark of the Loa to taunt one of the bigger minions. You could also taunt a smaller minion, keep the bigger minion alive. Yeah, I think I like this a bit better. Because to get through this, a Giant kind of has to hit it anyways.
It's an awkward health toll,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we can see that, like for example, we can see Polymorph is there,
Yeah.
but you can't play around Polymorph. That's just
Flurry's
hard,
massing
so.
with a Polymorph, and Mage takes another win.
Yeah.
2-1.
Flurry
Druid
just-
could not get it done against Mage this week.
Flurry just does it again, honestly. It's so crazy. Not only that he's beating, he had to play Druid twice.
Yeah.
This week he had Rivius on Friday, and then of course just had che0nsu for second hand. The 2 players who brought Druid to, I have to assume, counter Mage, and Flurry got them both as Mage and then beat them
And then
both.
still beat them,
It's
yeah.
like, I don't know, incredible from Flurry, off to the best start he can possibly get for this Grandmasters League, and he is definitely one to watch, and we will keep watching him week in, week out. For now, that was match number 4. It's going to be done for the day. We've got 2 more matches to go, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.